Badge of my shame, but your own.
Demi Moore in The Scarlet Letter.
It's a lie! The evidence has been falsified. It's impossible. I never broke the law. I am the law.
Sylvester Stallone in Judge Dredd.
A wedding?
Funeral.
Eddie Murphy in Vampire in Brooklyn. What do these three films have in common? Each has made either Roger's or my list, or maybe both of our lists, of the very worst films of 1995. And that's the subject of this special show where we give one more shot to lousy films that stole 2 hours out of our lives, 2 hours we're never going to get back. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times, and you've got me thinking now because we're going to select 6 movies apiece. That's 12 hours apiece. Between the two of us, that's 24 hours.
A whole day?
That's a whole day.
Get me a knife.
Happily. We're calling our first category overhyped flops because these are movies that, in a sense, were the victims of their own publicity campaigns. Everyone heard all about them, their curiosity was aroused, and then the word got out real fast. My first selection is The Scarlet Letter, which starred Demi Moore in a ludicrous film version of the Nathaniel Hawthorne novel. Now, in years to come, whenever film students want to learn how not to adapt a literary classic, this is the source they're going to want to turn to. The movie's version of Hawthorne's Hester Prynne is a sexually awakened woman who falls in love with a local preacher in a scene that would be right at home in a historical romance soap opera. My second overhyped flop was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, based on the toys and TV show that are really popular with kids, but in this live-action version, the human actors still seem like little more than cartoons, and you could only tell them apart by the colors of their costumes.
We've got new ninja swords. Use them.
Right.
Right.
Ninja crane sword.
Ninja wolf sword. Ninja frog sword. Ninja ape sword.
Ninja bear sword.
Ninja falcon sword.
What disappointed me about that movie was that a lot of kids did go to see the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which did absolutely nothing for their imagination, their curiosity, or their artistic development, while in the same year, there were wonderful family movies around like A Little Princess, Babe, and The Secret of Rowan Inish. And if we're losing our lives looking at these movies, think about little kids who only have so much time to develop their personalities, and they're going to this mindless drivel.
If parents are going to complain about the quality of entertainment, then they've got to examine, because, you know, the kids didn't drive themselves.
No.
The 8-year-old didn't get in the car.
The parents of America voted for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers,
and they're going to get more of it,
over good movies for children because they didn't care.
A Little Princess and Babe are great movies.
I know they are. Yes,
great
you're
movies.
absolutely right.
As for The Scarlet Letter, you omitted the biggest sin of all, and not Hester's. Happy ending. They threw a happy ending on this story.
Oh, yeah, well,
That's the
it's a
sickest thing in the
20th
world.
century story. I mean, the other thing is they threw in the Indians and the burning building and saved from the gallows at the last moment. It's a completely different movie. If they changed the title, they changed the title, there wouldn't have been anything left.
Well, on the title, you know, I suggested that they probably showed some restraint in not changing the letter to, you know, they said A for adultery, I thought C for cheating on her husband.
How about NC-17?
Okay, my first choice of an overhyped flop is Showgirls, and here's a film that dared to be released with an NC-17 adults-only rating. But all that was hype because the film was trash from start to finish. The story of a dancer who comes to Vegas wanting to become a star. Elizabeth Berkley starred in the film, and my first problem with this movie, I'm sorry, she just doesn't look good. I'm talking about her face. Somebody didn't make her up very well.
Okay, music!
Go!
Then our innocent has to do battle with assorted sleazeballs in Joe Esterhazy's sordid script that mixes sex and violence and teaches us nothing about Vegas Nothing about lap dancing or about vaulting ambition.
Yes, Caesar will sing, and then we'll go back to my place and we'll sing. Just the four of us. How about it? We sing.
Another bombed hype to the gills was Waterworld, in which Kevin Costner's futuristic mariner actually did wear gills as he roamed the seas looking for fresh water and a civilization that had nearly destroyed itself. Waterworld was simply Mad Max on jet skis. Not original and always very grim. Just what we want from Kevin Costner in an action picture. He's miserable on screen to all people all the time.
Yeah, it's a real downer. And you know, when you think about these two movies and the resources that went into them and the millions and tens of millions of dollars, you realize what they didn't have were scripts. With all due regards to the millions of dollars Joe Esterhaas makes, he hasn't been writing scripts lately. He's been hyping concepts to people. Then they attach a star to it, then they get a budget, then they start building sets. They don't have a story, they're still rewriting the story when the movie is shooting.
It's all forget third act trouble. This is all just premise. There's no second act, there's no third act.
You got it. Okay, when we come back, more of the year's worst movies, including a category we're calling Stupid Superhero.
Double whammy. Double whammy.
Continuing our special show on the absolutely, positively worst movies of 1995, our second category of bad films is called Stupid Superheroes. And I really hated Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone, continuing to destroy his reputation by playing an all-in-one, futuristic justice machine, cop, judge, and executioner.
And code 3613, the first-degree murder of a street judge. I guess life. Death. Court's adjourned.
Now, Sylvester Stallone can write wonderful scripts. The first two Rocky pictures are proof. But for years now, he's dropped his pen and turned himself into a creature about as human as a cannon, an international fighting machine who says little and presides over explosions. Judge Dredd was just more of the same. You know, I don't care. You know, out there he gets $20 million a picture.
I know he does.
What's his reputation worth?
Yeah, well, it's worth $20 million a picture, obviously, because that movie was a big hit overseas and it made a lot of money. The problem is that people go to see it and they leave feeling empty because it hasn't done anything for them, for their imagination. They've just passively absorbed explosions and special effects and chases, and after a while it just deadens you.
You know, Roger, I never have looked at the camera and talked to an actor. I'm going to break this tradition right now.
Okay.
I know, Stallone, you probably hate my guts. You think I hate you. I don't hate you. I like your talent. I want you to use it. This isn't what you were put on Earth for. You can do this in your sleep, and sometimes it looks like that's exactly what you're doing.
That's very inspirational, Gene. I think I'll make a sermon later in this show, too.
Okay, and I'll pass the plate, too.
If I get inspired. Okay, that's terrific, and we'll sing a hymn together.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Okay, my choice in the Stupid Superhero category is Tank Girl, which starred the usually effective Lori Petty in a bizarre futuristic fantasy about a desert world where Tank Girl lives outside the system and encounters the kangaroo-like mercenaries called the Rippers.
And like, what are you doing here?
Is it true what they say about guys with big shoes?
Yeah? He asked you a question, answer it.
Hey, I have two words for you. Brush your teeth!
I think the problem with both Judge Dredd and Tank Girl was that they devoted all of their attention to the special effects and not enough to the characters and the story. I'm repeating myself. It's like a broken record.
Yep.
They build these amazingly wonderful, beautiful sets. It all looks like, you know, a real world out there.
Yeah.
And into that world, they put nothing. No ideas, no characterization,
It sucks the
no
energy
motivation,
right out of the screen.
no witty dialogue, nothing.
We've said the titles. We don't want to give them any more screen time. Coming up next, more turkeys from '95, lousy movies with good actors. Bad career move movies are next.
Complete and utter stupidity.
It's a curse.
Continuing our special annual program on the worst movies of the year, we're calling our next category Bad Career Move Movies. These are movies that star actors with talent who never should have gotten within 1,000,000 miles of these scripts. For example, take Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson. They worked great together in White Men Can't Jump, But what were they doing in Money Train, a goofy action picture set below the streets of New York with Snipes and Harrelson and yet another one of those endlessly recycled cop buddy formula pictures?
No laying down on the job!
I'm glad my pain amuses you.
Money Train got blamed by some politicians for copycat attacks on subway token booths soon after the movie was released. It wasn't clear whether the attackers had seen the movie or not. What bothered me about those scenes was that they were too gruesome and violent to belong in what was essentially intended as a silly, buddy action comedy. How can a movie be funny when it keeps cutting to terrible, violent images like that? Why is that kind of stuff thought of as amusing?
Because they knew the script is dying, the writer, okay, and the director. It's dying. Put in something that will jolt the audience and keep it going. Cool. That's sick. But getting back to the larger point of these actors, okay, it's arrogance. They are so force-fed compliments out there that they think anything that they improvise together, any bickering at all,
will
work.
Snipes and Harrelson presumably thought that because they were so good in White Men Can't Jump, it was because they, when they're on the screen together, are good.
Yeah.
If they were to listen to everything they said in that movie and then listen to everything they say in this movie, they would find that there was a big, different element involved, and it didn't have anything to do with them. It had to do with whether or not the movie was worth making in the first place.
Okay, my choice of a miserable career move movie, also set in New York, is Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy, one of the most charismatic men in film, looking positively ugly with facial hair, fangs, and extra long locks. He plays an ancient vampire looking for a mate. First, some dumb gags in a movie they couldn't decide whether it wanted to be funny or scary.
I saw you at the docks. You're a liar, a thief, and a cheat.
No, that's my brother Miles. I'm the honest one in the family.
Well, that's unfortunate. Because that's what I liked about you.
Okay, here's another comment on writing coming. Eddie Murphy had his brothers help him with the script of Vampire in Brooklyn. Based on Murphy's recent track record, he should really go outside of his family for help. I think that he should take, and I'm serious, a supporting part in a great director's film. Say to the film world out there, hey, I want to be a part of good quality work, and then he can work his way back up the movie ladder and star in his own films.
I think you're right, because here's a guy...
He's sending out the wrong signal right now.
He's talented. He was, at one point, a big star. His career is in free fall.
Right.
Does he know that? Does he know,
he has to know that
when you must have a comeback project, you don't write the screenplay yourself and have your brothers help you.
Right.
You go out and it's a collaborative medium.
You submit.
You're the actor. You're not the genius. You're not the producer, the director, the writer, the agent, and the studio head. You're the actor. And if you get good people on your team, you're likely to look good, and that's what he needs. He became a star because good people like John Landis and Walter Hill made him look good in good movies.
The sermon is concluded from Mr. Ebert. When we come back, a category we can include every year, comedies that didn't make us laugh.
A jury duty notice?
My son, the lawyer.
Our next category of lousy pictures from 1995 is that old standby on this annual show, comedies without laughs. My selection, The Jerky Boys. And I think the co-stars of this picture are in danger of taking away from Pauly Shore the title of the world's most aggravating performer. That's until Pauly Shore's next movie, of course. Johnny Brennan and Kamal Ahmed co-star as two guys who make crank calls, here impersonating a gangster over the phone to a real mobster played annoyingly by Alan Arkin.
Me and you, we make a team.
You and me make a team. We make a team. I don't know who you are.
Ernie, what are you trying to get cute with me, baby doll? Come on, what are you trying to make me feel funny in the pants? What's up?
Don't suck on my pants and tell me it's raining out there, tough guy.
You know, this is getting out of line now. I ought to split your brains from the back of your knees to the front of your face. You got that?
Yeah, shoe face.
Now, I'm told that these two stars have sold some CDs by taping their real-life crank phone calls. I haven't listened to them. They could be funny. Real-life stuff can be funny. My friends and I used to get a kick out of calling up the local delicatessen and asking if they had King Oscar in a can and to please let them out. I still think that's funny. And it's certainly funnier than anything in The Jerky Boys. Not one laugh. Not one laugh, I swear to you, Roger.
We never thought of King Oscar. We always called him about King Albert. Asked if he was in a can. Yeah, well, you know, we don't talk about these shows before we do them, so it's a coincidence that you thought that they were more obnoxious than Pauly Shore, because amazingly enough, my choice for a comedy that didn't make me laugh.
Oh, did he make a movie?
Stars none other than Pauly Shore.
Which
a lot
one?
of comedies didn't make me laugh this year. But the one that didn't make me laugh the most, or for that matter, made me laugh the least, was Jury Duty.
Oh, I forgot
How
about...
could you forget Jury
Oh.
Duty? That was the movie that starred Pauly Shore as a guy who's delighted to get jury duty because it means free room and board. His strategy in the courtroom is to do everything possible to make the trial last as long as it can because he likes the free lunch.
What in God's name are you doing here?
Your Honor, I don't think it's fair that you guys get to have your own little powwow over here where we can't listen. We have to hear truth for information.
You're a juror. Get back in that box.
This was a year when a lot of comedians followed Jim Carrey's lead and made movies where they tried to be dumb and dumber. In our business, you get to be a connoisseur, and I would rank them like this. Jim Carrey is a virtuoso, a genius, obviously. Chris Farley and Tommy Boy, remember that one?
Oh.
At least he was hard-working. Sure, thumbs down, thumbs down. We're talking on a continuum here. From Jim Carrey to Chris Farley.
No, Chris Farley.
No, okay, wait a minute. But we don't have room then at the bottom of the scale.
Start digging.
For Pauly Shore. He was in a category of his own, a category that I recommend be discontinued.
Well, you know, I'm sure he's sitting there laughing, saying, that's exactly what I ought to do. I'm not trying to appeal to you.
Hey, you didn't get it. You didn't get it.
You, Mr., you know, middle-aged.
Yeah, right.
I'm going for the idiot kids out there.
Yeah, well, they're not idiot enough. The kids these days are just too smart. Even the ones with IQs of 50 are too smart for Pauly Shore. What do you say?
Right, Roger. Coming up next, our individual choices for the single worst movie of 1995. Could we possibly agree?
Now it's time for the payoff, as Gene and I each choose our personal selections for the worst film of the year. This is the segment that asks the question, can a film be worse than Jury Duty? And in my case, I'm picking not only the worst film of the year, but also the worst idea for a film. The name of my selection is Mr. Payback. And it was one of those interactive movies that were hyped real big last spring and then fell right off the edge of the map. The idea was simple. They rigged up a theater with individual computerized consoles with controls at every seat. Then they showed you this movie that had choices in it, and you got to choose the punishments for an assortment of villains. For example, here is a character who parks in a handicap zone.
I say, screw the handicap. I'm parked there, and I ain't moving.
No problem. You won't move it? I will.
One piece at a time. Stop! I'll move it! I'll move it! I'm moving it!
The basic problem I had with the choices on the screen in Mr. Payback was that they didn't have one called None of the Above, which I would have voted for every time. If there were buzzwords that did not turn on the audience during the year, they were virtual reality and interactivity. I think the jury is still out on virtual reality, but interactivity looks as dead as a doornail. That's my choice. The reason is very basic. We don't want to interact with the movie. We want it to act on us. That's why we go, so we can lose ourselves in the experience. If we're going to have to make the choices, we ought to be paid instead of the writer.
Or you do what's out in the lobby of some theaters, which is play the video game. Don't try and mix the two of them together. It's not going to work. It was a dismal project and a bad time at the movies. Okay, my choice for the worst film of 1995, and my selection is triggered by all the talk these days about Hollywood's lack of family values. My inclination is to reject such talk, but I really couldn't, I have to admit, while watching Jade, a truly sick piece of would-be entertainment about a cheating wife caught up in a murder mystery who submits to having her head tied up in a silk stocking and yanked during sex with influential politicians and businessmen. Linda Fiorentino, a wonderful actress, plays Jade, the sick private persona behind her more public high society profile.
Did you have sex there with other men?
No. I cheated on my husband one time I didn't know I could be arrested for.
And guess who wrote Jade? Right, Showgirls writer Joe Esterhaas. A daily double for him this year on this show alone.
How many were there? A lot. I don't know. I lost track. How could you let them do this to you? They didn't do anything to me, David. It was my choice. I liked it. I was in control.
Jade was made by Oscar-winning director William Friedkin, the director of The French Connection and The Exorcist, a once great talent who has fallen in hard times. I picked Jade as the worst movie of the year because it seemed to symbolize a year of many bad films with sick anti-life themes.
Well, I didn't think it was that bad, although I certainly did vote thumbs down, and I agree with you that the story was not understandable. I think that basically if they had been able to pull together the story and make it into a good script, like Basic Instinct, might have worked. Who knows? It just didn't.
It's not there on the screen,
No,
Roger.
it isn't. I know it isn't.
And you know the level of luxuriating in
depravity. Oh, yeah. Well, these guys don't really have any sympathy with women. Esterhaus, in particular, doesn't really understand them except in terms of pornographic fantasies. And since he can't, obviously, as Showgirls proves, write good pornography, maybe he should just give up trying and make movies that only have men in them, since maybe he understands them. That's it for this special show. Next week we'll be back with our annual memo to the Academy. Now, that's one of our favorite shows, the show where we look back over the best movies and performances of 1995, and we give the voting members of the Academy our advice about how they should mark their nominating ballot. The Oscar race is on, and that's next week. Until then, the balcony is closed.
Gonna rent a movie in 1996? Then you'll want the brand new 1996 edition of Roger Ebert's Video Companion. It comes with a separate pocket video guide.